Hey guys, it's Philip with Trade Genius, and hope you guys are having a good day. This is a big day for Bitcoin. It has U.S. regulated futures going live in about an hour and a half from the time this video is being recorded. So 6 p.m. Eastern, the Chicago Board of Exchange is going to start trading their Bitcoin futures. CBOE was the second announcement. The first announcement was the Chicago Mercantile Exchange. However, CBOE beat them to the punch by a week. So what I'm going to do on this video is I'm going to cover basically the details of the CBOE futures, how they trade, when they trade. 2 would be how this is going to impact Bitcoin. I know a lot of you guys are interested in that. And so I'm going to kind of go over the different dynamics in play. And then 3, we'll take a look at the Bitcoin chart as we start heading into live trading of the futures. So what does the CBOE futures, how does it work? Well, they're going to start trading at 6 p.m. Eastern, and that's how the trading week starts. And then it closes at 4:15 p.m. on Friday. Between the days, there's an hour break. So at 4:15, it closes and then reopens at 6 p.m. and trades all through the night. The contract size is going to be 1 Bitcoin. So the CME futures, which launches next week, actually is 5 Bitcoin worth. So this is a little smaller contract, so it'll be more attractive to smaller investors. As a retail investor or someone that's fairly new to crypto, I do not recommend trading these. As a disclaimer, don't do it unless you've traded futures before. It's a different animal, so you want to kind of stay away from that, and we can talk about that a little bit later. They won't allow you to just hit a market order. So basically what that means is if you go to an exchange now, you can hit a market order and it'll just buy it wherever the market is. The problem with Bitcoin doing that is sometimes when you do that, you'll get what's called slippage. So if you saw the price was 15,000, by the time you hit buy, it might go up $20 or $30. So they're not going to allow you to do that. You have to enter an order amount or a price amount, and you're either going to get filled on that or you need to adjust it to get filled. So that's kind of an interesting thing. They wanted to eliminate the slippage because they recognize the volatility in Bitcoin. This is also a cash settled product. So what that means is it doesn't really deal with the underlying Bitcoin market. And the thing you have to understand, a lot of people are apprehensive about the futures coming to the Bitcoin space, but and I'm going to show you guys, we've already had futures on the Bitcoin space for a while, just that there wasn't a large U.S. institutional or regulated body that was actually doing the futures. There's an exchange in Europe called BitMEX, and it's been doing swaps and futures on Bitcoin for quite a while now. And I'll show you the interaction and how that works. But keep in mind, this isn't touching the actual Bitcoin. These are kind of like, if you will, side bets. All right, so they'll move with Bitcoin, but the supply and demand doesn't really matter, because they're just going to make sure that if you have what you want to buy, they'll just make more futures contracts to buy. All right, it's not like the real Bitcoin market where if there's no Bitcoin to sell, like everybody buys it up and the supply is low on the exchange, price goes up really fast. Futures aren't like that. Futures are just mimicking the price action. But we'll get into that a little bit more as far as how that affects the overall Bitcoin market. So again, they're cash settled. There's no pinning or no buying of the underlying. Some contracts, future contracts like corn or soy, if your contract expires and you don't sell it, they will ask you where you want your corn to be delivered. I mean, this is a physical delivery, so there's a different dynamic there. Okay, so there's that. Price discovery, they're going to use a index that is basically based off the Gemini exchange, and so they're going to use that to use it as a settlement price, meaning at the end of the day, where's the final settlement price, and they'll use that to lock in the price range at the end of the day. That's based on the Gemini exchange, which is run by the Winklevoss twins, and they've been in the news. They're basically Bitcoin billionaires. They've been trying to get an ETF up and running. I would imagine probably 2018 they finally get their wish on that. If that settlement price fails, they also have a blended index, which is called the Winklevoss Blended Bitcoin Index. So that's what they'll be using to base their pricing off of. Here's the thing about futures is that they have circuit breakers. Now, on the Chicago Board of Exchange, the circuit breaker is 20%. So we need to see a 20% move in Bitcoin price, and then they would halt trading. This is the problem, though, when you have circuit breakers and you're trying to trade, is if you don't get out of the trade and the circuit breaker trips, if it reopens, you might be in a world of hurt. You might be owing the exchange money because of the margin requirements. Margin means that how much collateral do you need to have in your account to trade the futures. So for the Chicago Board of Exchange's future contract, which is opening today, you need 44%. So roughly speaking, if Bitcoin's $15,000, let's say it's been trading around that level, you need about $6,600 in your trading account just to be able to trade that one Bitcoin contract. So still, it's a leveraged product, and still, if you have run into like a circuit breaker or trading halt, that's scary because you're stuck. So that's why we don't recommend futures trading to the average investor or retail guy. So that's kind of the details on the futures contract itself, which is going to start trading here. We can take a look at the Bitcoin chart as we discuss some other things here. So basically what we see here is, we've had this downturn and now we've had this bounce, and basically bears are pretty much in control until we get through this red zone here. This is the retrace zone that I look for, and if we get back above that, it's going to be bulls back in action. Now, we have had this steady decline. This correction here was about 31% or so. So that's pretty normal, right, for Bitcoin corrections. The one thing we have noticed is that corrections are taking less and less time to complete, which means that we, in a bull run, when you start going into like a parabolic move, which I've shared with you guys before, you're going to see that. You're going to see, a few months ago, pullback would take 4 weeks. The next one was 2 weeks. The next one was like 3 days. This one's going on about 3 days, though it looks like it might be over. We'll see. But, so that's kind of going with the theme of this whole move higher. I suspect volume going into this coming week is going to be on the rise. And Bitcoin, if you look at like a daily volume or something like that, or even a weekly volume, if you go to weekly, you can see this shaded area is the average, the moving average of volume. I expect that to keep going up and up and up, and it's also commensurate with price going up and up and up. So I expect that trend to continue all through 2018. Okay, so now what is this going to do to Bitcoin as far as just having the futures on it? Well, a lot of speculation has been like, oh, Wall Street's going to come in and really going to just damage the market or suppress it, just like they did with gold and silver. But you have to think now, this is one of those rare instances where Wall Street got in late to something. And the reason why they got in late was because they couldn't really deal with the volume or the institutional money flows that they need to in Bitcoin until recently. Okay, so last month when all of these futures contracts were basically legitimized, it then gave them the green light, and now they could start mitigating their risk and putting in hundreds of millions, if not billions, into this space. So when you have a futures contract that's regulated in the US, basically what the funds now can do is they can go in with larger amounts and meet their risk profiles. So, hedge funds, that's what they do. They hedge their risk, right? There's things called risk parity funds. They have very specific rules about how much risk they can take on. So if they buy something, they've got to mitigate that on the other side with something that's going to hedge that volatility or that exposure. So they may have a long position on, and they're also going to sell some shorts to mitigate that. But again, when they're selling or they're shorting on the futures, really it's just, for them, it's an accounting thing. It doesn't really affect the underlying Bitcoin. How this is going to affect the underlying Bitcoin is that it's paving the way for large institutional flows to come into the Bitcoin space. So this is bullish. You're going to see money that's come in that's never come in before at a rate that it's never come in before. You're going to see this manifest in 2018. So this isn't about like a gold silver market manipulation. It's a completely different animal. This is, again, an asset class that a lot of people were able to get into before Wall Street. Wall Street does not control, the majority of Bitcoin, and never will, because the majority of Bitcoin was already mined even before the Chinese miners came on the scene. So, and now you're starting to see global adoption, and this is a global thing, right? You have decentralized exchanges all over the world, so it's not something that just Wall Street created or controls. It's nothing like that. So pretty exciting stuff. I think you're going to see a lot of growth in Bitcoin space. I think that Bitcoin is going to be probably a huge insurance against inflation. I think inflation is going to be a huge risk for the US dollar in the coming year or coming years. And so I think you're going to start seeing a flight to safety in Bitcoin. The other thing is it's a non-correlated asset, and that means that funds love to see a non-correlating asset, meaning that it doesn't really move with all the rest of the stuff that they're invested in. And they haven't had a good non-correlating asset in a long time. And here comes Bitcoin. Bitcoin doesn't care if the market's on fire, if it's tanking or what. It just does. There's no real correlation. I think over time that's going to change, and you're going to see, even if it becomes a flight to safety, then I think definitely you will see an inverse correlation, meaning that if markets are down, it goes up, similar to gold. Right now, that's just not the case, because the amount of market cap in Bitcoin is pretty small right now, so you don't see a large movement like that in a correlated fashion. But that, I predict, will probably change. So in a nutshell, don't sweat these futures. I don't recommend trading them unless you are a seasoned veteran trader and have traded futures before. I think the circuit breakers are going to kill a lot of the future traders that want to possibly short Bitcoin. On the other hand, you're going to have funds and other entities that are going to take on Bitcoin futures as a hedge against their position. For example, if you take something like the Square Pay app, they're going to be allowing you to buy Bitcoin. So they have to have Bitcoin. So if they take on a large position, say they have to have, 2,000 Bitcoin at any given time to facilitate buyers' demands, they may take out futures to hedge their positions so that they don't get too out of whack in case where they bought the Bitcoin futures, or the actual Bitcoin, if it goes against them 20% and they took on a short position, that's going to hedge that so that their books don't look like they're getting too far out of whack. So again, I think it paves the way for a lot more buying into the Bitcoin space, and all in all, I think it's pretty bullish. So don't worry about it, guys. We'll be monitoring price, and we'll see how this week goes, and then we'll do another update on Sunday with the CME futures and go over those as well. In about 2 hours or so, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, Bob and I will go live, and we'll start looking at, hopefully we will be able to bring up the futures charts on our other trading platforms and see how things react as they go live. All right, guys, thanks for watching. Take care. We'll pump out another video tomorrow. Hit subscribe button. That helps us keep these videos going. And thanks for watching. If you guys have any other questions or interested in any of the stuff that we have on our site, the link below, TradeGeniusAcademy.com. You can check out our training products there. Thanks, guys, for watching. Until next time, bye.